Welcome to this week's episode of Illogically Logical. I'm Kirk Hollick.
And I'm Kaylee Chartier.
And this week, we will be discussing the radical, crazy protests and riots on college and university campuses. We will also be discussing some drama, the continued drama between J.K. Rowling, Daniel Radcliffe, and Emma Watson, and the newest comments made about that back and forth. And then lastly, we'll be taking a little detour up north, talking about some Canadian politics, about how some politicians in Canada have been pandering to immigrant groups rather than focusing on Canadian culture. And in addition, the leader of the opposition, leader of the Conservative Party, Pierre Poilievre, was kicked out of the House of Commons for calling Trudeau a wacko.
Okay, like the first story we bring over is what you've probably seen across the internet, social media news, the protests across universities. The two major one is Columbia and UCLA. There's a video that describes it on CBS.
NYPD video released today shows officers in riot gear moving in to arrest people who were barricaded inside a building at Columbia University. New York City Mayor Eric Adams is blaming people not affiliated with the Ivy League for the mayhem. In Manhattan tonight, police are arresting protesters at Fordham University's Lincoln Center campus. Students set up an encampment calling on the school to disclose and divest their investments relating to Israel. At UCLA this afternoon, a more peaceful scene than the brawls that took place overnight between protesters and counter-protesters. A spokesperson for California Governor Gavin Newsom calling the campus police response to the violence delayed, limited, and unacceptable.
A little bit biased is CBS, so it's going to be a little bit liberal. But like UCLA has encampments, and they're not going to move until I think the universities are not going to do business with Israel anymore, since they think Israel all is going as Israel's fault, but like both sides have. Almost over. So the video is basically biased. It's CBS basically saying that the pro-Israel side is attacking the pro-Palestine side, but there's a lot of videos that show the pro-Palestine doing some damage. But like what the UCLA encampment in Columbia, they want to have the university not be in business with Israel anymore, because they're they're anti-Israel. That's the protest. They're protesting Israel and supporting Palestine, Hamas, basically. The two universities we're going to focus is UCLA and Columbia, because they're in the news a whole lot more than the other ones. But like, as the article stated, there's articles that say like over 80 universities are having protests, and some of them have canceled classes. Some of them have canceled graduation due to safety concerns to the students and the people wanting to participate in the graduation. So basically, UCLA did an encampment. The police evacuated them early Thursday morning, like I think 1 a.m. to 6 a.m. And there is a video that shows the aftermath, basically what's in the encampment.
Mentioned, Bill, it's going to take some time. Classes won't begin until Monday, but this place is a total mess.
Yeah, it is.
I had a question about that, because I think it's outrageous that people who are going to have to come up and clean up their mess. Not sure what happens to all that stuff. But who's on the hook to pay for it? Is it the taxpayers, or maybe could they add it to the student's bill and send their parents a little note along with it?
Dana, I think you know the answer to that. Yeah, taxpayers are going to pick up the tab, ultimately, one way or another. You'd like to believe that, it's coming out of the university budget, which technically you could argue that's aid that is not going to go to future students. But the point is, obviously taxpayers had to pay for the enforcement as well as the cleanup. But what's the sad part? I got my master's here. Buildings and the graffiti and just the utter disrespect that they had for property that was not their own, let alone this being your university, and that's the way you want to treat it. And some of the demands that they made were so absolutely unrealistic. Right, the UC system, the entire endowment is going to divest of these companies doing business in Israel, and some of their demands saying that they weren't going to do it until the genocide ended. I'm sorry. Israel does not listen to the students inside this encampment. That's not their job.
That video just shows like after the evacuation UCLA, there's a lot of trash and a lot of their property or like a lot of their items are still on the campus, and it kind of looks like a tornado hit the campus. Not gonna lie, it doesn't. I mean, these people really didn't pick, like they just like trashed everything, which really not surprised. A lot of like the presidents of the universities that are being targeted by the protests or the riots have spoken out in a Twitter. Carol Fault, it's not UCLA, but this is University of South Carolina, which says like this is because they're having the same problems UCLA. This update: I've been made aware of a swastika drawn on our campus. I condemn any anti-Semitic symbols or any form of hate speech against anyone. Clearly, this was drawn there to cite even more anger at a time that is so painful for our community. We're going to work to get to the bottom of this immediately, and it's just have been removed. Like I mentioned before, UCLA has graffiti, so does UCS. But like what's interesting, the tweets has no, like the comics have been shut off. So kind of just not surprised. I mean, if you teach college students radical ideas about anti-Semitic stuff, they're gonna portray it, they're gonna shout it and regurgitate it in public and do protests. So I'm really not surprised. Which is very, like, it's just what's going on in universities. It's just really not surprising what's going on with Israel and the Palestine conflict.
Mm-hmm. So you said before that universities won't work with Israel. How do they work with them currently?
Says what I found is this the universities are supporting settlements in occupied territories or supplying equipment used in military operations, so supporting Israel during times of need.
Okay, so just basically charity or donations.
Yeah, and
Okay.
and the pro-Palestine or pro-Hamas students do not support that. And like I mentioned in the past, like a lot of the protests have become violent, especially in UCLA. There's a guy who went into the encampment in UCLA, I think it was UCLA, where he went over and saw a lot of things. Out to that Camp Higby, he went undercover a few days ago to go through in UCLA to see what is going on in the encampment. He says, I was inside the massive UCLA encampment. There's communist symbolism everywhere. So he found a poster that says, "Are you a communist? Let's get organized." Then there's swastikas. There's like the sickle and hammer, the famous communism symbol on the flag. There's hearts right next to it. There's Free Palestine. Boink the pigs. That's what I'm saying. Basically, probably an anti-police.
Taking a look around the encampment after police.
To go more into it, says, and there's more communist symbolism from. I told you they were communists. It's blood from the river. So like, you haven't heard like from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. So that's like a famous, well-known chant that the pro-Palestine, pro-Hamas have said. It's like there's an anarchist sign, cab, the sickle and hammer, Viva Palestina, and like it's just graffiti everywhere on the property. So like they're damaging property, and then calls her infada. Basically, it's an anti-Jewish thing to say to kill Jews. Is what I've looked it up. What it says. It says first and second fathers killed thousands of Jews from 80 to 2000 via suicide and car bombings. And there's like a lot of pictures, and then there's like Queer for Palestine, which is ironic because people like Palestine do not support LGBTQ people in their own country. There's a lot of pictures of what he saw of the encampments. Like there's graffiti everywhere. There's like it's a giant mess because they just graffitied everything.
Mm.
Like I say this, like I do support the First Amendment. I mean, it's a very important law in the US, but when you are graffitiing, damaging property, forcing your way through and blocking students to go to the class, because there's videos of that in UCLA, that's not the First Amendment right. That's just being a nuisance, and what you're fighting for, what you're protesting for, is going to go through deaf ears because they're going to make people not like you. So, like I said, there was a college student who wanted to get through class, but they wouldn't let him in UCLA. Like he was being very courteous, very kind. He's like, "Hey, I want this in my class. I paid tuition for this class for UCLA," and they would not let him through. There's a video. Like I said before, like he was trying to get through. Said, "I'm a UCLA student. I have the right to be here. I paid tuition," and like he said, like one of the protesters said, "We're not engaging conversation." Like he says, like just let me through, but they wouldn't. Which to me, that's not First Amendment. That's just you're restricting someone to get through a building that they rightfully paid for to get through. So, I mean, it's not fair for people who are not involved in the protests and riots to be punished by these protesters, because I mean, like they paid for tuition. UCLA is not a cheap school to go to, so like you're kind of just wasting their money. Like they have the right to go to any building they need to that the university implies, and if you're just blocking it, I think you're just making your point nonsense.
Mm-hmm. Have there been any like counter protests on behalf of Israel?
There has been a lot. A lot of them have like weren't you like the Israel flag, and I think there's a video where like they were singing like the national anthem, or like I forgot what the song was. It was a very pro-American song, and they were singing to it. And there's like a photo you see like a bunch of like a frat boys protecting the American flag from falling, because some universities and protests have tried to take down the American flag and replace it with the Palestine flag, and they were making sure that the American flag doesn't fall to the ground, because in the US, I think for any like country, having the flag fall is disrespect to the country.
Yeah, like flags can't touch the ground.
So yeah, and then USC, also another school in California that's having the same problem. They originally canceled their graduation for this year because of the safety concerns. There's like a girl, she did a video about how she was upset as she should, because she was a senior during COVID, so she didn't have a high school graduation. She had, I think, what a lot of like the seniors in 2020 had. They had like a outside graduation, but it really wasn't a graduation. Some didn't have graduations at all. They just got their diploma, but didn't have like a ceremony with it. This is what she said before they changed.
So USC just canceled our graduation. I have no words. Like, this is so, like, it's actually comical at this point. If you don't know, the seniors that are graduating college right now are the seniors that graduated in 2020, where we didn't have a high school graduation, and a lot of us had like drive-through fake graduations or no graduation at all. And now we are seniors about to graduate, getting ready for our first real graduation, and it just got canceled. I literally just like, I just can't even, I'm in shock right now. We, as a whole senior class, have never had a real graduation because of COVID first, which we thought was like a one-time thing, like we're the class that got screwed over. It is what it is, unlucky. Now, USC just canceled it. And of course USC, we've all worked so hard to get here. USC, I'm sure you know, is not an easy school to get into. And so everyone that goes here is very accomplished, like had worked really hard to get in, and now they just canceled our freaking graduation. Like, what now? What now? They sent out an email 10 minutes ago about how they know it's disappointing, but they're canceling it, and they're gonna have other fun events, which I don't even know what that means. Like, I understand that like a lot has been going on at USC right now with like protests and everything. I just feel like there could have been a different way to go about this than to cancel the entire graduation for a class that never even got a high school graduation either. Here's the part of the email right there. that says, as a result, we will not be able to host the main stage ceremony that traditionally brings 65,000 students, families, and friends to our campus at the same time and during a short window from 8:30 to 10 a.m. We understand this is disappointing bullshit. Like,
So that was Gracie Flynn. So this video did went viral because of like a lot of students are facing the same thing. So what I researched, like they're not having like the typical graduation is giving smaller graduation, but with tickets. It was like I think they can give out 8 free tickets to family and friends, and to increase security, have your bags checked before you go into the graduation, which I would be upset because like she said, like 4 years ago she didn't have a graduation because of COVID, because of health restrictions, because of mandates. But now she can't really have her college graduation because of all the riots and protests going on between the pro-Palestine. So it is kind of insulting, and it's not just disappointing, it's very heartbreaking because like you go to college, you work hard, and you graduate, have a ceremony celebrating your accomplishment of completing college and celebrating that with your friends and family and like celebrate together, and she can't really have that now. I know like other college students, when I looked, they're saying the same thing. There's a lot of videos going out that saying that they're disappointed that they don't have a graduation because of what's going on. Okay, the second story probably hurt a little bit. J.K. Rowling versus Daniel Radcliffe. So that it's been out for a little bit. As you know from last time, there's a tweet saying like this person asking that you probably will forgive Daniel Radcliffe and Emma Watson for what their stance, like what they said against J.K. Rowling for her support or like her advocacy for detransitioners, and like how like the society and like the woke politics is erasing women. So like Daniel Radcliffe, who played Harry Potter, and Emma Stone, like they expressed opposition to J.K. Rowling's opinion regarding like her stance on trans issues and women's rights. Saying like it's like in the Fox in an article by Fox News, it says Radcliffe and other Potter co-stars like Emma Watson have expressed opposition to Rowling's viewpoint that total acceptance of the trans community and their belief undermines the existence of biological women. So when J.K. Rowling first came out about her criticism of a 2020 article that mentioned people who menstruate instead of women, because she said like it was erasing women, and that was in 2020. Watson came out with a tweet that said, trans people are who they say they are and deserve to live their lives without being constantly questioned or told they aren't who they say they are. I want my trans followers to know that I and so many other people around the world see you and respect you and love you for who you are. And then there's like a photo of Emma Watson wearing trans people are people. That was in 2020, and like Daniel Radcliffe is a very avid supporter. I mean, there's a video of him with the Trevor Project talking to people who are transgender, and then like he talked about, he's like in the video says he's been a member since 2009, and he supports it. He doesn't understand why J.K. Rowling doesn't like is not completely blindly following the transgender movement like he is. So there's another tweet that says like asking for like she would forgive Daniel Radcliffe and Emma Watson. So this is like the original post that J.K. Rowling did. It says, over the last 4 years, Haley Cass has conducted the most robust review of the medical evidence for transitioning children that's ever been conducted. Mere hours after it was released to the press and public, committed ideologies and doubling down. So this is like a tweet by Emma Russell says the Cass review is a awfully flawed ideology that let's say that isn't worth the paper to printed. So the Labour Party and Strasser must stand against erosion of the trans right and trans healthcare provision. This is absolutely vital. So like Emma Retzel is, like the paper says, it says children healthcare should always be led to evidence in children's welfare, free from culture wars. Clinicians and parents alike want the best for their children at this crucial development stage. This report provides an evidence-led framework to deliver that. So basically trying to like having children to give care that's based on evidence based and like not based on like feelings or like ideology that could harm them in the future. And then this Adam Harris, who tweeted back, commented on her tweet, says just waiting for Dan and Emma to give you a very public apology, safe in the knowledge that you will forgive them. And then she tweeted back to Adam Harris, says, not safe, I'm afraid. Celebs who coist up to a moment intended on eroding women's hard-won rights, who use their platforms to cheer on the transition of minors, can save their apologies for traumatized detransitioners and rebel women reliant on single-sex spaces. So like, like she'll say like they need to apologize to detransitioners because they're like Emma Watson and Dan Crowell really haven't like spoke about them or really mentioned them or really to see what they're right say. So Emma Watson and Dan Radcliffe hasn't like really spoken about detransitioners, hasn't like really brought them up, kind of really just ignored them because kind of contradicts their opinions, their views. But Daniel Radcliffe, he responded back in an Atlantic interview after this was said, because this was like earlier in April, and this is I think a few weeks after what happened. So like he said, it really makes me sad ultimately because I do look at the person I met, the times that we've met, in the books that she wrote, and the world she created, and all of that is to me so deeply empathetic. So he's really not apologizing. He's just like shooting back about like he's still believing his opinion. He hasn't changed. And then Emma Watson hasn't really said anything, but she's just like Daniel Radcliffe. She's very a prominent figure in trans rights and women's with feminist rights, to say that.
Well, I don't see how this is news at all. Like, I don't know why people take so much account into what Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson, and J.K. Rowling have to say about politics at all. Like, I don't see how their opinions are relevant to anybody. And if you base your political stance on something that a celebrity thinks, then you might as well not even have an opinion anyways, because if you're just going to go with what someone else thinks, then it doesn't matter what you actually believe. And then like J.K. Rowling, and I don't know why she has to make pot shots on like people significantly younger than her, people that she knew as children, and she just comes across as very passive aggressive and vicious. But then Daniel Radcliffe and Emma Watson do the exact same thing back to her. So it's just this idiotic cycle of them going back and forth, insulting each other without actually saying any insults towards each other. When if they were actually adults or actually liked each other to begin with, I don't know why they wouldn't just settle this all privately. I don't see why it has to be like this big public spectacle other than getting brownie points for pandering to the respective sides. Like Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson are going to get brownie points from pandering to the pro-trans people, and then J.K. Rowling's getting the exact opposite from the exact opposite people. So I don't really see why they have to keep making this big news cycles just because entertainers who'd made something famous, all of a sudden their political opinions are now relevant to news cycles.
I mean, I do your point, but your point because like it should be handled privately. If it really bothers them, they should. But like I understand like J.K. Rowling's point because of like what's really going on across the world, and pretty sure with that they're not going to change their minds anytime soon. Maybe they would, but it really depends like if they're gonna do research and sit down and actually talk to each other cordially, because like they did get along back then, but like it's been years since I think they talked in person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, like obviously, like J.K. Rowling's wrong about pretty much 99% of things, and she found the 1% of things that she's relatively right about. Like obviously, like men should not be in women's spaces on any situation, and that she's right. Detransitioners do need more public attention. But the fact that like particularly like certain right-wing people like really latch onto her kind of makes no sense because she stands for like everything else that you stand for, she's against. But for some reason, there's just a casual ignorance to both things. Like J.K. Rowling would viciously attack you for any other thing, as she's done in cases of feminist. Like she's a hardcore feminist up until trans issues. She goes to abortion rallies. She panders to, I guess, the LGBT minus the T parts of that community because she's always pandering. She's retconned or attempted to retcon her books, like making Dumbledore gay. She tried to gaslight everybody into thinking Hermione was black the whole time. So like I really don't see her angle. Like I respect what she says about the trans issue, but I really don't see why she is this paragon of rational thinking for feminists against trans people.
Yeah. So like a lot of her points are more on the left side for this part. So like I mean a lot of people I've seen are like that, but like I think you gotta be careful. Like there's some people like in celebs that they don't wholly agree on other things, but like they're extremely left on one thing, then maybe a little bit like right on one thing, but like don't be surprised if she says something that you may not agree with because like of her politics. But
Yeah.
like I do understand what she's trying to do because like a lot of like women's spaces and like detransitioners are being gaslighted into being quiet from the extreme left. So
Yeah, no, it always bothers me when a entertainer or a celebrity tries to pivot into political commentary with like not a lot to say. Like in my opinion, you can get what J.K. Rowling says from a plethora of other people that already like make their career out of political commentary.
yeah.
But like J.K. Rowling just become a martyr, and it's very strange how like the left has bought into it, the right has bought into it. She's just a martyr for women against men in women's spaces.
Yeah. I mean, I would probably like listen to some detransfers. Like Chloe Klein's a good one because she was a detransitioner and she is one and she does talk about her story. I would like probably like go to like detransitioner stories to listen to them more because like they have more information because they've been to the medical system that has basically failed them and lied to them and really didn't properly screen them for like maybe other mental health illnesses that like they said they were being ignored because I know one detransitioner said like she had bipolar and then they really didn't screen her for that. So like I would like go to like the primary source and like maybe ask some questions. Like I do respect J.K. Rowling for like her trying to fight for women's rights and then detransitioners, but like remember she's not fully conservative. Like she's still liberal in many other areas in topics.
Yeah, and like I really don't care what she has to say about anything because that like same with like Daniel Radcliffe and Emma Watson. Like I know there's like commentators online saying that Emma Watson and Daniel Radcliffe should not be allowed to say anything because they owe J.K. Rowling their lives pretty much, which I don't think they owe her anything. Like obviously I think there's some degree of loyalty lost in how they speak out against her, but they don't betray her by simply having an opposite opinion of hers. It's how they talk about her that is kind of where it gets a little strange that they would be so callous towards obviously the person that gave them the platform that they had. But I don't know, it's just part of the game. Like I don't believe that they owe her anything. So I know a lot of people say that. But the fact that these celebrities are kind of at the front of the story really takes away from the actual messages that both sides are trying to get across. Like if you're on the left, I don't see why Daniel Radcliffe and Emma Watson's comments about J.K. Rowling and like that celebrity drama, why you want that drama ahead of what you consider to be an important issue of trans rights. But on the other hand, I don't see why you want J.K. Rowling being martyred to like against what her former friends say about her, instead of what she's trying to say about detransitioners and what rights are being taken away. But every article is more about the headlines of like the biggest name rather than the actual message that could be a really productive one if they focused on what actually mattered instead of the celebrity gossip side of it.
Yeah, I think like courteous, and it would be courteous is like talk in private and to see what they agree and what they disagree on, because just like yelling at each other on the internet, like really not talking to each other face to face, you're not getting anything done. You're not going to change anyone's opinion. You're just going to make, I think you're just going to make them double down on their opinion. I think that's how minds are changed and how ideas are spread. It's just like talking in person, agreeing and disagreeing on what your values are, what your opinions are. It gets things are more efficient that way than just yelling on the internet.
Yeah, but it's definitely just turned into like a show for them, because like this, I think Scottish or some other type of European government is like cracking down on J.K. Rowling, trying to get her some kind of criminal charges for hate speech, which is just absolutely ridiculous. But again, it's just continuously a distraction from the actual main points.
Yeah. Well, they made a law that you can be arrested on hate speech. That's why a lot of transgender activists are trying to get arrested. The things that she said.
Yeah, which is just absolutely ridiculous to just like silence somebody. Because like
Yeah.
even like you disagree with somebody, like why would you silence them? Because if your argument is so correct, you should be able to debunk any opposing argument because they're so wrong.
Yeah, but I mean, I think the UK has a similar law, but I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah,
Like,
they're all crazy over there.
In England. Yeah.
For our third story today, we will be so in Canada, a lot of the politicians enjoy, well, I wouldn't say enjoy, maybe they don't enjoy it, but they pander heavily to specific minority groups. So in this particular case, there was a Sikh rally, which is like a Punjabi type culture, like Indian immigrants. And Justin Trudeau, leader of the Liberal Party and Prime Minister, Jagmeet Singh, who is the leader of the NDP party, New Democratic Party, which is a further left party to the Liberals. He attended this a Sikh rally. And then, probably surprising if you hear that he's the leader of the Conservative Party, Pierre Poilievre attended these rallies.
One of Canada's greatest strengths is its diversity. We are strong not in spite of our differences, but because of our differences.
We will rely on the great Sikh values that Guru Gobind Singh brought forward, values of equality for the common people. We need a direct flight to Amritsar, and we need a national blue seal so that professionals that come here from Punjab or anywhere else can take a test, prove they're qualified, and work as nurses, doctors, and other highly paid professionals. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Thank you.
ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਜੈਨੋਸਾਈਡ ਰੈਕਗਨਾਈਜ਼ ਕੀਤਾ, ਇਹ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਉਪਰਾਲਾ ਆ ਕਿਸੇ ਦੀ ਕੌਮ ਦੀ ਤਰੱਕੀ ਵਾਸਤੇ, ਅੱਗੇ ਵਧਣ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਜੋ ਬੇਇਨਸਾਫੀ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਰੈਕਗਨਾਈਜ਼ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਆ। ਸੋ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਆਪਾਂ ਸਰਬੱਤ ਦਾ ਭਲਾ ਵਾਲੇ ਕੰਮ ਕਰੀਏ। ਆਪਾਂ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦਾ ਜੋ ਮਨੁੱਖੀ ਅਧਿਕਾਰਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਉਲੰਘਣਾ ਹੋਈਆਂ ਉਹਦੇ ਵੀ ਬਸ ਸਾਡੇ ਨੁਮਾਇੰਦਗੀ ਕਰਨ ਦੀ ਜ਼ਿੰਮੇਵਾਰੀ ਵੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ।
After each of those major political leaders began to pander and do speeches and praising Punjabi culture, Maxime Bernier responded in a tweet. Well, as a joke, he asked which one of these three is the best panderer, but he did go on to clarify that he believes that Canadian immigrants should be integrating into Canadian culture instead of colonizing Canada into their own culture. And then some further replies, one that stood out to me was a response saying that if their culture is so good, because I think Pierre Poilievre said that Sikh culture is Canadian culture. And then a good response that I saw was, if it's so good, why do they move out of their country to Canada and then begin to just bring their own culture over? So basically, like, if their culture cultivates such a great country, why are there so many immigrants fleeing or leaving that country to come to Canada?
I mean, I feel like a lot of politicians to get votes will pander to a certain minority, certain group to get more votes, but like they really don't care about them, really kind of ignore them during their like election or during their run. During their run. I mean, like, it's, if you're going to like different country, you should embrace that culture, but like it's okay to still like celebrate your culture and like spread it around so people can better understand it. But like making it like maybe like trying to overtake the culture, I don't think it's okay. But like if you want to spread it around, I mean, you can. But kind of like the pandering reminds me of Biden when he I think during like a policing what talking about how police have a hard time and families have a hard time of like having that fear of like their loved one in the police like dies and they have to be told. And he said like he had that happen to him one time, but like he doesn't have any police officers in his family, so
Yeah,
he was pandering to them, but like it wasn't true.
Yeah, well, what was so interesting about this one is like Pierre Poilievre saying that Sikh culture is Canadian culture. Like I absolutely think that an immigrant should come over, and like obviously I don't think they should abandon their culture, but they should be integrating into the culture of the country that they move to. Like if I were to move to like say Japan, it would be expected of me to behave in a Japanese manner. Like they're very polite, very rule oriented. Like they have a lot of strict rules on how you should walk the streets. So if I came in acting like a common American or Canadian, it would be very disrespectful, especially seeing as if I was an immigrant there. But that same standard isn't applied, especially in Canada, where it's talked about of being like such a big melting pot of cultures, but then you kind of lose what makes Canada its own individual culture.
Like you move to like a country, you're gonna have to respect and participate in their culture. Like you can still use your culture you're from, but like don't try to like force another culture on another culture, because it wouldn't work.
Yeah, but like it's almost like the Canadian politicians are forcing themselves into other cultures just to appease voting groups, because it's very different than the American system is. So places with higher populations, their votes matter more than rural areas, which that's pretty similar, but like the seat system. So you don't vote for Donald Trump. And if Donald Trump gets enough votes, he is the president. You vote for like the Liberal Party. And then if your region wins, the Liberal Party gets a seat. So you send your representative of the Liberal Party to represent you in Parliament. And based off how many seats you have, whoever has the most seats is the Prime Minister. So it's very dependent on really heavily sticking to what that specific region goes for. So if you're in Quebec, you're going to pander to the French. If you're in Alberta, you're going to pander to like the Midwestern or farmer type lifestyle, which is what many of them, well, Pierre Poilievre does this. Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh really, I haven't seen them do much work for that. But Poilievre is really like a chameleon, because one day he's posting pictures and videos of him dressed up in like farmer wear and construction workers and standing out in a field. And then the very next, he's wearing Indian head garbs and kneeling and trying his best to speak Punjabi for votes.
Like you said, like how they push themselves into a culture they probably don't fully understand, probably won't go back to it maybe until like another election year. So like if you want to be part of a culture, I would probably like do research and you know, actually like try to better understand instead of doing it for like a certain amount of time to get votes and just ignore it after you get elected in.
And like Canada has such like a pretty like open immigration policy that it's really vital to appeal to these immigrant groups to get elected. And what Maxime Bernier, who is the leader of the People's Party of Canada, which is a very small, it's pretty much like a fringe party, he is the only political leader that really speaks out against mass immigration and really sticks to what he believes a Canadian value is, which is just kind of like this very similar American-esque culture where everybody's welcome, but everybody's Canadian. You're not Canadian is not second. Canadian is first once you immigrate. And he really wants to slow down on this immigration process, which is something that Poilievre, like the leader of the Conservative Party, really is against. Like he wants more mass immigration, which is it's just very strange how like the Conservative Party wants as many immigrants as possible when there's a housing crisis, and the main reason for a housing crisis and many like economy problems is that there's just way too many people coming into the country. Students are coming in to study internationally and then they don't leave. Like there's just a lot of problems with Canadian immigration, and it's definitely become like a part of like the culture of the political system of just you always have to kind of morph into whichever minority group that you are surrounding yourself with for that campaign.
Yeah, I mean, like I think a lot of people do support immigration, but like mass immigration does have its problems, and like especially illegal immigration that in the US is what we're facing. I mean, there's a lot of resources that are being taken away from Americans, and like and illegal immigrants are taking it out, like they're taking a lot of it. Like illegal immigrants are considered more important according to Biden than actual Americans. I mean, in California, they have a lot of bills, and like, I mean, they have better healthcare in California than Americans do, and they're being like so like both Canada and the U.S. both agree like the citizens who are here legally and should be first because they're here legally. They do like all people need like needs, especially Canadians and Americans.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with like don't kick anybody out. They have no reason to leave, because if they are proper full citizens, you can't just like revoke that because there's too many people. That would be horrendous and very bad. But you can lock down, secure borders, minimize how many people you're going to allow to immigrate in, and that will allow like housing crises, job crises to kind of balance themselves out, let everything kind of simmer down, let everybody adjust, and then slowly maybe integrate more immigration, see how it goes, depending on what's needed for the country. But I personally really don't, I'm not a fan of when a politician panders. Like I understand that it's part of the game and how like what you have to do. And I'm sure I probably don't even realize when I'm being pandered to, because it's just like, oh, it's my group, I identify with that. But like from the outside, when I'm able to look at it when they're doing it to a different group, it's very obvious that they're pandering, and that it kind of shows that they don't really care, which I get that it's the game and like that's what you have to do to get elected. But like especially like Trudeau and Singh, like they're just not very good politicians at all. They're very selfish and egocentric. But Poilievre has built this reputation, and kind of vaguely, like some American commentators talk about him, where he's like, even in the country, people describe him as like using Trump-esque tactics. But I really disagree with that, because he isn't very conservative. He's a very good Canadian branded conservative, where he'll vote for stuff like Trudeau's bill that allows the government to take away quote unquote trans kids from their parents if the parents aren't okay with them transitioning. Poilievre has signed off on that, and Poilievre really struggles to make a stand on any specific topic unless it's 100% guaranteed to get him votes. Like he's he's very weak when it comes to taking hard stances on controversial issues until he knows that his voter base absolutely will agree with him and he wants that positivity.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of Republicans here, like they will say all these things, they'll promise like these policies, but then when they're in office, they kind of back out and they kind of act more like Democrats. Like if you're like conservative, you should, like any politician, if you are saying these things and you want people to support them, you should double down or like support them when you're in office. It's not say things and then like take them back. I mean, I know I've heard about the transgender bill in Canada. It's kind of horrific having kids being taken away from their parents because their parents don't want to like transition. And so he did sign off on that.
Yeah, Polyev voted for that.
Okay, yeah, like I mean, you may not be like you may not be the popular person, but people respect you for being honest and standing with your values instead of like voting for certain things that'll get you votes. I mean, if you are kind of like you're fickle on a lot of things, you're people are gonna see how fake you are and how you run things in your office.
And that's definitely like you can see at least on the corners of the internet that I'm watching, where like, I follow Maxime Bernier. I mean, like I have like the People's Party hoodie. I obviously follow that political base, but you see a lot of former Canadian conservatives coming over to like I wouldn't say further right, but I guess the Conservative Party has gone further left than like say like a People's Party is further right. But you see a lot of former Canadian conservatives kind of see this hypocrisy, kind of see like this pandering and kind of shady dealings with everything. And they're slowly realizing, and it may lose votes for conservatives. And people are worried that if, like, say, Maxime Bernier attempts to split votes from the conservative base, Trudeau will win another election. But on the same hand, a Polyev as prime minister, it could very well be just a liberal with a blue coat of paint, which in Canada, conservatives are blue, liberals are red. Very confusing. But no, I don't think it'll happen anytime soon, but I do think that there is a shift where conservatives are recognizing that their party is moving further left, along with the Liberals and NDP who are going even further left than they are as well. Like I don't think there'll be a big change. If Polyev wins prime minister, I'm curious to see. I hope he would do a good job, but some people are thinking it's going to be a landslide on conservatives. Some people think that Trudeau's easily going to win the next election, but I really don't think it's easy to say. All right, so our last story also involves Mr. Pierre Poilievre of the Conservative Party of Canada. This week, during the House of Commons question hour, which is a frequent event in the Canadian Parliament where the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition may discuss things, hash things out, and kind of challenge each other. They're like mini debates. And this week, when Pierre Poilievre was talking about Trudeau, he made some apparently inappropriate remarks about him.
The NDP has asked him to reverse course on his and formerly their radical policy. 22 British Columbians have died of drug overdoses, but he continues to allow those drugs to kill the people in our hospitals and on our public transit. When will we put an end to this wacko policy by this wacko Prime Minister?
No. I'm going to ask the Honourable Leader of the Opposition to withdraw that term, which is not considered parliamentary.
Mr. Speaker, I replace wacko with extremist. He is an
The Honourable Member to please.
Yeah, he also replaced extremists with radical. So it went back and forth like that for a while. Poilievre refusing to withdraw his comments. As a result, House Speaker Greg Fergus ordered Poilievre to leave for disregarding his authority. All Conservative MPs also left with their party leader.
So as you saw, that the Speaker of the House told Poilievre that he had to withdraw his comment on calling Trudeau's policies and his person, like Trudeau as a man, a wacko, which is, there's a lot more colorful things people could say about Trudeau and his policies. But sure, maybe wacko was a little out of place for a parliamentary meeting. I mean, do you think it was inappropriate to call Trudeau a wacko?
Yeah, and you say there's like worse things to call someone. I mean, probably wasn't very appropriate, but like at least he's honest. I mean,
Yeah.
he's not like saying nice things to Trudeau and then talking about his back. He's saying it in his face.
Mm-hmm.
But like I would say not in a professional setting.
Yeah. Well, I thought that Polyev was very fair, saying that he would not withdraw his statement. He would replace the wording with extremist or radical. But the fact that the Speaker of the House refused to let him change his statement, he had to fully withdraw that, which really doesn't really mean anything. Like, obviously, he said it. Like, it's not going to matter. But the fact that he asked him to just fully take it back. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of Polyev, as I've already talked about, but I do really respect that he was willing to not back down from that statement, and he did get kicked out of the House of Commons. And I believe the entire conservative wing of the parliament walked out in solidarity.
I mean, this do in a group, like that does take courage to not pull back or double down your statement.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm pretty sure. I think Trudeau's probably said worse things in office. I'm not expert on Canadian politics.
Well, we all know he has fun on Halloween.
I would not doubt it.
Yeah.
But just seeing like how the Conservative Party support him by walking out. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I think with politics, it does get very heated, and some people in your own
Mm-hmm.
party can throw you under the bus. So, like,
Yeah.
I do respect that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I know, like, that's not the first time Polyev has gotten in trouble at the house during a question hour. I think it's his first time getting kicked out. I'm not sure. I think it is his first time, but the last time I recall was maybe a year or so ago. He brought George Orwell's 1984 into the parliament, and he started reading out quotes from the book and asking, like, it was a rhetorical question. He was asking, like, just like the whole room, what's the difference between some stuff in 1984 and some stuff that Trudeau has either said or done? And he got in a lot of trouble with that, saying that you're not allowed to bring a prop into the House of Commons, and then Polyev argued that it's not a prop, it's a book, just as if you're allowed to bring like statistics or notes. So Polyev tried to argue that 1984 is the same as him bringing like economic statistics to read off of during the question hour, but it is not his first time getting kind of reprimanded by the Speaker of the House.
Like, I mean, I think to me it's kind of hypocritical. I mean, like, I think props to people are different. Like, but like, I know, like, not long ago they brought a Nazi to Parliament and then applauded him. So like,
yep, and Polyev was there for that, and he did applaud.
Oh, so
Fun fact.
but like, you can't like it. So you can't call someone out for bringing a book and then saying it's okay to bring a literal Nazi.
Yeah, that was a very embarrassing moment in Parliament.
I think everybody saw that. Everybody was like,
"Oh yeah, it was huge. It was huge.
Yeah,
story.
it was huge. He was very huge here too. But I mean, like, I think the U.S. is different because I know, like, Ted Cruz brought for a filibuster. So if you're not from the U.S., you know what filibuster is. It's basically a way to prevent a bill from being passed. You can do anything. You can like do a speech why the bill is a bad idea. You can, Ted Cruz said, read a doctor's book to distract someone or like prevent it being passed. So like, I think it's not strict, but I would say a book, I don't think it's really a big deal. I mean, you really can't hide something. Depending on the size of the book, you can't really hide something in a book that could harm someone. You can hit someone with it, but not hide something.
Yeah. Well, I find that kicking Polyev out, even like he was willing to concede the word wacko, but like kicking him out for refusing to withdraw the statement really takes away from the point of question hour, because that whole event is meant to have an open dialogue frequently for the country, so the leader of the opposition can challenge the prime minister and what he has been doing, and the prime minister can defend or like rebuttal it, however it is. Like I love the format of question hour where you have to talk to the speaker instead of the person right across from you. It's beautiful. I think America should adopt it. It's the most productive way for political discourse, and you cannot change my mind.
I mean, it's entertaining to watch, saying, Mr. Speaker, this guy's an idiot. But like, yeah, like if you can get kicked out for calling someone a wacko and not retracting that statement, what else can you be kicked out from? So that's like, that can be like very alarming. And what else, like how far can they go to prevent like free speech in Canada?
Well, there's not much more for them to do other than just crack down on like language police.
Like thought police.
Yeah. Well, no, there's language police in Quebec.
That's unsettling.
Well, that's because you have to, your child has to be enrolled in French immersion if you live in Quebec.
Interesting.
That was kind of off topic.
I think we can use that maybe. I don't know.
Is there anything else we should even say to that?
I think we're good. We have like 9 minutes left.
I'm going to turn off the recording then.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the stories that we went over. If you have anything to say, share in the comments, like and subscribe, and have a good day.